Can you hear us? Okay, yes.
I can hear you. Great, we can hear you. Okay. Thank you guys for bearing with us. Let's see, let's get back to the presentation. All right, all set? As I was saying, yeah, we were talking about the attributes that go into the master network, area type, functional class, and link, but also this project ID. If there's a project link, then that project ID must be named the exact same in the master network as well as in the project list. When these two files are fed into the scenario manager, it joins them up by project ID and exports out those links from the master network to a scenario-specific file. We'll get into that in the training, interactive training as well. And then on the OD trip table side, we have various growth rates from TAF, FAF, and then this research program that Stevie and Smith worked on. And those OD trips are fed into the scenario manager as well, because the scenario manager, you will define your analysis year that you want. And then your scenario network and your trip table goes into the traffic assignment model along with the TAZ geography, and you get your loaded network and can do various utilities, making maps, looking at statistics such as VMT, VHT, trips by purpose, and so forth. Okay. So before we get into the weeds a little bit, any questions on the overall development of the shift model? Okay, great. So back in October, we presented 5 scenarios. Today, well, the first part of the training, I'm going to go over scenario 3, which is a flooding scenario in Louisiana. The second part, we will go over scenario 5, which is a work zone scenario in Missouri. All of these scenarios were based on the future year model, the 2040 E+C model. Okay, so scenario 3, which actually includes 3 sub-scenarios. It's roadway closures, flooding events for I-20, for a section on I-10, and then what happens if both of those interstates were closed. But today we're going to just dig into scenario 3A, which is the I-20 closure between Ada and, about I-220, excuse me. And the main thing that is done for a closure of a roadway is simply changing the number of lanes from whatever they are to 0. So that's the high-level summary. Of course, there's more steps to that. Okay, so I kind of wanted to start from the very beginning and talk about accessing the model. So the first thing is download, I think Bruce put it up on the website, the October 2016 model package. If not, there is a flash drive going around that has it for anyone who wants to download it. I see some computers back there, so if you guys want it, I think there you go. Great. that has the model package as well as some specific, some scenario-specific files and some maps, preloaded maps. So the model was developed in Transcad 6, release 2, build 9085. For those that have worked with Transcad, you know that sometimes the models are specific to builds. We have tested them in some later builds of Transcad 6. Seems to operate fine, but I always put a little caution too. Just know what the model was developed in, as other builds can cause some odd results or the interface not to work properly. Yes?
What are you done in terms of forward compatibility? Because I know you built it, you did it in release 6.0 with build 9085. What sort of compatibility do we have? I mean, or is it often forward compatible but not backwards? I can't know how it works. I know we had that problem before.
Yes. So within Transcad 6, we found that it's typically forward compatible, not necessarily backwards compatible. But once you move to Transcad 7, it is not compatible as far as the highway network. Transcad or Caliper changed the way they do things in Transcad 7. There were a lot of modifications, so all of geographic files are updated to a new version when you open them in 7, and then that would not be backwards compatible back into 6.
We got very good already. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just ran.
Okay, well, I think Ron's running. I think our guy's running at 7. And I don't think he had any problems with it. I mean, I think
okay.
One of the few people that didn't have a lot of implementation problems with the 7 scenarios.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Virginia from Arkansas.
Hi, Virginia.
Yes.
That's great.
Virginia from Arkansas. Scott Thompson from Kentucky.
Oh,
Virginia. No, I forgot what version of Transcad this ran in, so I just opened it in 7, and of course it gives you this warning that if you better back up your file because it's not backwards compatible, but I went ahead and boldly went there, no, yes, okay. Version 12.285 of Transcad 7.
85.
It ran successfully.
Okay, great. And so it ran and the outputs look reasonable and.
Oh, it ran.
Okay. Yeah. That's one check.
That's always a good sign. No, in Kentucky, we just opened what we affectionately call the East End Bridge. Rather than traffic on I-65 southbound having to go through the center of town in Louisville, Kentucky, it now can go around Louisville across a brand new bridge.
Okay.
I'm going to be there in May.
It's a toll bridge. Sorry, but it does have, it's a non-toll booth. But yeah, this is going to dramatically alter traffic, especially probably freight in downtown Louisville. So it affects I-64 and I-65. So I just created a base year model with that in there. So
great.
Anybody who's using Transcad 7, I've got a copy of the network.
Great, good.
Work in 6.
That is good to hear that it at least will run all the way through in Transcad 7.
I'll let you know if I see a sign.
Great. So we'll load the interface, but the interface will contain 3 buttons: a scenario manager, model run, and utilities. Scenario manager is where you create your scenario, specify those settings, those input files, the parameter files, and the output files. Model run is where you can run the model by step or run it completely. And then utilities is where you have those graphical maps that are automatically generated or the tabular tables summaries. One thing I would point everyone to is the model documentation. The model documentation at the end includes a user's guide and practice scenarios. These practice scenarios are pretty elementary, talking about network editing, but it's a good reference to be able to see how to install the model and to make simple edits. So let me close out of this and just show you the model structure. So actually, I have a lot of stuff in here. Let me do this. Okay. So if you were to extract this shift model package, I guess I could have just opened it, the basic files that you need to run the model consist of these three folders. The interface, which the interface has those various scripts, and the GUI, the graphical user interface, which is required by Transcad. An image to support the interface, a default scenario, which specifies just the initial input parameter and output file path, and then an about file, which the about file is a good reference for defining the files required for the 2014 base year, the 2040 forecast year, and then the model background and history. And of course, all of that is in the model report as well. And the scenario defaults to the model being located directly under the C drive in a folder called shift_model. If you're like Scott and you have your own filing directory, that can be changed in the script, or you can navigate to it as soon as you load the interface. But just for default, it's directly under the C drive. Okay. So I'm going to walk through this slide real quick, and then we can do it interactively. So after we have the model, the files downloaded, extract all the files and put them in the correct setup, then we want to identify the project or the scenario that we want to code. Identify any model modifications. And actually, when we first did this scenario, we did find that the model script needed to be adjusted because the model script did not recognize any zero lane rows. So in the October model package, this script has been modified. But anyway, it allows for zero lane rows not to be included in the assignment of trips. Then the next step is to create a new project list file. So we have a project list file created under the master directory for the 2040 E+C projects. I always recommend...
Liza?
Oh, yes?
I have a question. I see a project list spreadsheet file in the folder, in the input folder. Like for each scenarios, 3A, 3B, and 3C, do we need a separate project list for each one of them?
Correct. I always recommend creating a separate project list for each scenario.
Okay.
Because what the scenario manager does is it joins whatever project list that you identify.
Mm-hmm.
It will join all those project IDs that are listed in that file with the master network. And the master network can include any project. So E plus C plus 10,000 other ones if you want.
Okay.
But your scenario may only be particular to the E plus C plus this one I-20 closure.
Mm-hmm.
So your project list needs to include just those projects that you want included in your scenario.
Okay. Thank you.
That's why I would create a new file. So basically, you would copy over the 2040 E plus C project list, the default list, to a new file, and then add records, add rows for your new project ID.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And ideally, it would be nice to just say project ID 3A, but we have to define it by the different combination of attributes. So you'll see for scenario 3A, we actually have 3 project IDs defined. And that is because the interstate crosses through 3 different area types.
So we have different segments on that route.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. So project 3A really has 3 project IDs with the associated attributes of RU code, which is area type, functional class, and lanes. The functional class of 1 is your interstate, so that stays the same. The number of lanes is 0 because we're closing the road. But we're maintaining the variation in area type.
Okay.
So once we have that project list created and those projects added, then we need to make sure those projects are in the master network. So you would go in, and I should have explained these pictures. So the image to the bottom left shows the project list, the E plus C project list, where I renamed it to EC underscore 3 underscore A, and I added these 3 rows at the bottom. Then we need to add these 3 project IDs to the corresponding links in the master network so that it has something to join to. And that is what this image here in the bottom right is trying to show us. You see there is an attribute called project underscore ID 1, and that is the field that you enter the project ID in. So the easiest way that I found to do this is just to use the identifier tool. Let's do these steps interactively. How about that? So I'm going to open Transcad. And then I am going to first, under the master folder, I guess the first step, I already did this, so it's going to be hard, but the first step would be just basically copying the E plus C list and renaming it to, 3A. And you would need to do that in the CSV file and the associated DCC file, which Transcad creates, has the field name. 3A. So if I open it in Excel, it's not going to show the field names. But if I open it in Transcad, it will, because it'll reference that .dcc file. And these are these first set of projects are all of the 85 E plus C projects identified. And if I remember correctly, the naming convention for these IDs is the state. Actually, I think it was the state FIPS number, and then the project ID from the state, but I could be wrong. So, yes, we did. So I would just go down here to row 86, add scenario 3 underscore A underscore 1, and that will be RU code 1, interstate, functional class, 0 lanes. And then I would just do scenario 3A2. That's area type 2, interstate functional class, 0 lanes. Scenario 3A3, area type 3, functional class 1, and 0 lanes. Yes. Make sure you keep it in the same CSV format. Don't convert it to an Excel file. So now if I open this in TransCAD, you can see, you guys are seeing this too. You can see the headers are there, and everything is, since the model only has 2 years, it assumes all projects are going to be coded in 2040. If we want them in the existing, the 2014, then those would not be incorporated into the project list, but they would actually need to be incorporated into the 2014 values in the master network.
How did you access that data?
So I initially started from the master folder, and then I copied the 2040, the project list EC, and created this project list EC3A, and then I just pulled the CSV file into TransCAD.
Hey, Liza, I have a question.
Yes.
When I see my folder, like 2040 EC forecast year, I see a project list, but it's in the Excel spreadsheet file, not in the CVS. Is that going to make the difference?
That does make a difference. So there should be an Excel file. I'm not sure if it's this one or a different one in your model package. But the Excel file just lists the project information. So here's where we're talking about the
So I should not change the the Excel file. I need to change the CVS so that the TransCAD model can read.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
The TransCAD model will only read that CSV file.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I like to keep all these under the master directory. Go ahead and replace. Okay. Okay. So does that part of updating the CSV file make sense? Great. So then we would go in and open the master network, which is the geographic network under the master folder. It is still dated December of 2015, but it has been updated since then. Just hasn't been renamed. So this is the master network, and we want to go in and update those link IDs corresponding to the closure. So, I've listed some of these link IDs here in the presentation to help us more easily find them. I think in all the master networks that you guys have from October, they're already in there. So you could either search by ID, or you can search based on this project_ID1 field. And just a side note, the main attributes that are of interest are really just these 4 that are needed for the model. The rest are mainly reference attributes that can be useful in making selection sets or doing other analysis. But for the model, it needs the base year 2014 rural urban code, functional class, and number of lanes and project ID. And what the scenario manager does is it assumes the network of 2014, so anywhere where RU code, functional class _14 is not equal to null, it assumes that is in the network plus any projects that match up with your project list. So if I sort these decreasing, you can see we already have all the scenario projects coded in. So if I can scroll down, and find scenario 3A. And I can just highlight some of these. So through opening the data view table, I can just click on the left-hand side to make a selection set manually. Or I could go in and copy the scenario name, go down to select by condition, and build the formula. Scenario ID equals this, or 1 or 3. This will be our scenario 3A. So that's nice because it's already coded in there for you, but if not, then you would have to go in and let's say we wanted to extend that closure, maybe another link. Then you would need to go in, you can use the identifier or info tool, and we'll check what the adjacent link is. RU code 1. So we would actually, so since the base RU code is 1, this one would be named scenario 3A1. So using the identifier tool, we can just manually edit which links we want to include in our scenario. And I'm going to not do that.
Liza, I have a question.
Yes.
for all 3 scenarios, we only need one subfolder, but we need 3 separate project list file. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I would say for each scenario, like each of the sub scenarios, I would create a new scenario.
So for item closure is one scenario, 20 closure is another, and the combination will be the third one?
Correct.
But we don't need the 3 subfolders to copy everything into the subfolder. We only need one folder, but just name it differently.
So, all right, so we'll get into that, but you want to create a scenario for each model run. You need to create a new scenario with a new folder structure.
I guess I will get better idea when you keep going to the next step, probably. Thank you.
But these inputs, these project lists can all be housed under the master folder for now, and I'll show you why in a second. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Slide 13. So I'll discuss this first, and then we can go in and make these edits. But once we've identified the project limits and updated the project list, the master network, we'll want to do some validation. It's always good to, this is such a big model, a national network. It's always good to do detailed validation around the project study area, checking, the network attributes, checking connectivity, that sort of thing. And then for situations like lane closures, you'll also want to make sure that the Sentry connectors are connected to a link that is not closed. So it at least has somewhere to load onto the network to the rest of the system. If it's connected only to, the closed links, then the model will fail. It won't run because it can't get those trips onto anything. So for this scenario, we made some refinements to the Sentry connectors. We added additional connectors from CAZ 221119, and we added them to US 79 and I-49. And kind of some editing 101 is this. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, but this toolbox is your network editing toolbox. The most important thing before you do any editing is to click this edit settings. This edit settings will be your key to copying attributes if you split links. That way you won't have any headache after you do a lot of edits and realize you have a bunch of links without any attribute data. So before doing any edits, make sure you click this edit settings, select all the attributes to copy. And then you can go in and add links, delete links, shift links, and so forth. And then before we do that, the last step is to update the select link query file. So when the shift model runs this assignment, it always defaults to the select link query file that is defined in the scenario manager. And you can set this up any way you want, with any links or any zones that you want to run the select link on. For this scenario, we wanted to look at I-20, US 82, and I-10. So what we did was, you can set it up. I think the default only has one query specified. This text file shows the 3 queries that we just discussed specified. And basically, if you just want one link ID per query, all you have to do is you can either manually go in, edit the text file, and change the link ID to the appropriate link ID that you want. If you want, let's say if you want, you can use the AND operator or the OR operator and edit the text file manually, or I can show you the interactive way to do it within Transcad that makes it much easier and does the same thing. But like the project list file, I would create a separate select link query file for your particular scenario, just so you know which one is run for your scenario. Okay. So let's quickly go through the exercise of just looking at some of the centroid nodes in this area. So we have our road closures identified here in green. Now I want to show the node layer. And the node layer, you can label the node IDs, or you can use this find icon up here. And if I click the find and then I click map feature, then with the node layer active, I can search for a value. And I know I want to, based on the PowerPoint, I know I want to find zone 22119. So I press OK. And yes, there it is. So this is the node that, or the centroid connector that is connected to links that have been closed. So if this stays, which it can, there will be no vehicles that load onto this link. They will only be allowed to load onto the other centroid connectors. So if this were a zone that had only one centroid connector, such as this zone adjacent to it, then that would have been a problem, because no vehicles would be able to get onto the network. So in this scenario, these 2 links were added, but let's see about adding another centroid connector to allow at least some access to the interstate. So again, up on your toolbar, you'll see a map editing toolbox. And this is that image shown in the presentation. The first thing we'll do is go to Configure Settings and update or verify that all of our attributes are set to copy. We have one here that's blank. I'm just going to set that to copy. There's another one that's a blank. This way, if we split any links, the attributes will copy between the 2 split links. Another reason I like to show all the nodes is because it's much more convenient, in my opinion, to snap new links to existing nodes. You'll see throughout this network there are several very small links, such as right here, and that can get messy when trying to select corridors. So So I'm going to add a new Centroid connector. I'm going to click the Add line and draw, left-click at the Centroid node, and then double-click to the existing node that I want to add it to. And then I can press Save Edit. Now, if I identify this link, you'll see all the attributes are null. We don't want that. We can copy attributes from another link, similar link, using this Edit Line Attribute feature, where I click on the link with attribute data, and then I hold the Shift key and click on the link without attribute data. Let's make this a little more readable. So in your editing attributes, you have two links selected. You can highlight the link with attribute data, right-click on it, on that column, and select Copy Values. And this will basically copy all the values from that one link into the other link that is selected. So I press Yes, and then I'll just run through and verify. All the attributes should be the same. Of course, the Centroid connector is in the same state of Louisiana, same attributes, and so forth. And when you use this Edit Link Attributes, you also have to click Save Edit at the end for it to realize the edit.
Hey, Liza.
Yes.
Once we click that green button, can we go back if you did something wrong? Or
yes. So Transcat does have memory to do under Edit,
Okay.
Undo. I'm not sure of your settings. So it can usually undo, I don't know, six or seven edits, but maybe not too many more than that.
Okay. I think before this step, like you copy every attribute over to the new link, you also did something like a copy. What was that for, the previous step? I think you clicked like a copy. I'm not sure.
Oh, yes. So before you do any map editing, I always recommend checking your configure settings, which is this little tool icon.
Right.
And when you click that, it gives you various options. And I always check this Join Split Attribute Settings. So if you click on Update, you can see what to do if you join a link or if you split a link.
Okay.
So this is important if you're doing a lot of splitting of links. If you did not have these set to copy, if you had them set to blank, it would split the link. One of the links would maintain the attributes, but the other link would have 0 attributes.
But I think we did choose copy, but when we have the new Centroid connector, we don't have anything. We still need to copy it over from another.
Yes.
So what is this step for?
So when you create a new link, it will not have any attributes. But let's say, let me show you
just for the split link.
Yes. So let's say I did not add that Centroid connector to this node, but I created a new one, mid-link. Then that would be splitting a link. And that could be a case where you would have 0 attributes on one link and all the attributes on the other. Yes.
I'm not sure what level of users we have in Transcat here, but one of my sneaky tricks is to simply split a zone we'll split a link, and then use that cloning, I call it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the worries about what attributes kind of goes away.
Yep.
When you centroid connectors are cyclical, if you don't know what direction the arrow of that segment is pointing. But I don't know how many people are versed in transcat to know about that.
Well, yes, yes. I mean, that raises good points. This network does not have any, let me double check before I say it, any directional links.
Well, I'm talking about topology.
So it does have some on I-75. So we definitely want to be careful there. Yeah, in topology, this network does not have attributes by direction, so AB versus BA. If, for example, the attribute for number of lanes is total number of lanes. Some networks have lanes broken out by, northbound or southbound, by direction, which is based on the topology. So those, you definitely need to be careful if there's directional attributes, but there's not any here. Okay. Any more questions on those editing steps? Okay, so now I want to just run through the select link query file. The select link query is also located under the master directory. The default is just the selectlink.qry. If I open that with Notepad or any sort of text pad, you will see that it defaults to one link specified for that query. You can go in and manually change this through TextPad by just deleting and changing the ID to whatever you want. The default name is SQL, but you can change that to, I-20. And if we want a particular link, we can copy this link ID into here. And then once I make any manual edits, I will want to save it as a new file, because this, I know, is specific to my scenario 3A. You can also add in, manually add in additional queries by basically copying this set between query and query just to the bottom and renaming it I-10 and then changing the appropriate ID to whatever link ID you want.
Eliza, this served as a test run for the scenario. What is this query for?
Yeah, so the model always runs a select link analysis with any assignment.
Mm-hmm.
You do not have to edit or update this file if you don't want to. But since it's already running in the background, I find that it's a good idea to have something relevant in there to your scenario so that you can just go ahead and look at the results. So, for example, I may want to see on I-20 with this road closure, what's happening to the traffic, to the west of the closure. Where's it coming from? Where's it going to? That's kind of what the select link analysis will tell you. For that particular link or sets of links, where is traffic coming from and where is it going?
So for the query, the Transcat won't run the whole model. It's just run for that particular link. See how traffic is going to redistribute?
So think of it as kind of a bonus to the assignment. So Transcat is going to run your assignment model no matter what. But we've also added in the script that we want it to run assignment and do this select link analysis. So while it's running assignment, it's also saying, hey, I'm going to keep track of this particular link, of the vehicles crossing this particular link, and report out an extra field in the assignment results that show the flows.
Okay.
For that link.
It's kind of like some extra to the assignment, additional query. Okay.
Correct. Yes. So if we wanted to do that interactively, we would open the master network, and we would go to, on the menu bar, go to Planning, Assignment Utilities, and there's the Select Link / Zone Query Builder option. And in here, you can, the first step would be to add a new query. I always start by renaming the query to something useful. Instead of query 1, we'll do I-20. And you have the option to, you can select a single link. You can select by direction if you want. You can select a node, like if you just want to figure out, from a particular zone. You can also do by selection set. Oh, yes. The other option up top is to select links in a selection set. So if you have a selection set already, you can just use that feature and it automatically builds the query. But for now, let's just select the individual link. So let's pick one west of the closure on I-20. So that'll be my I-20 selection set. And then if I want to add another one, so yes, save that, then I can just click the Add button again and rename that query to I-10 because I want to add one for I-10 as well. And I can select on a link down here for I-10. So now, and I want to save this. Let's go ahead and save this real quick. Yes. And this is where you would go in and save it as another query file under the master folder. I'm just going to rewrite over this select link query. You can name these files whatever you want. Whatever makes sense to you, go for it. Just remember what you're naming them so that when we get into the scenario manager, you know which files to pick. And then you can see our two select links that we have in this builder. And that's it. Any questions on those initial steps.
So when we run the scenarios later on, so these queries will be treated as separate scenario?
Yes, I'll show you. So when you create those separate queries within one query file, it runs, you basically get separate fields in the output table, output assignment table, for each of those links selected, for each of those subqueries.
Okay.
So they run all together within assignment.
But output will be in the separate columns or
yes.
rows.
Here, let me go ahead and show you that now, just so you can see. Let's close out of some of this. So if you look under a scenario, let's look at scenario 3A output, 3A output. The assignment results file is the MMA link flow bin file. If we open that up and scroll all the way to the right, you will see these attributes for this one ran 3 queries, for I-20, the flow, for US-82, and then for I-10. And this is total flow, and then it has it by truck and auto as well. And so what these fields mean are these are the vehicle flows that utilize or that cross those selected links. So the I-20 would be just those flows that cross that I-20 link that we selected. And we can do some maps of this in a minute. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so for those that have computers and want to follow along, let's go ahead and install the interface. Let's see. So who's planning to follow along? Just so I know. Okay. All right, good. So typically if we have a lot, I would give people sticky notes to put on their front of their computer if there were problems, but I think we're a small enough group to just holler. Okay. So to install the interface, I guess Transcode 6 or 7, we would need to go to add the interface into as an add-in. And then after we do this, maybe we can take a break. So let's add it into Transcode. I'm going to close everything down. So under Tools, and then Set Up Add-ins, we go there, then I already have mine added, but you would click this Add button. And after you click the Add button, you would go in and define the settings for the interface. So the script is set up for this interface to be a dialog box. So we make sure dialog box is selected. The description can be anything that you want it to be. So just for differences, let's do this. However, the model or the name has to be shift space model, because that's what is defined in the script. And then the UI database, that is the GUI file that Transcad reads, and that's located under the shift model interface subfolder. So you could just browse to see shift model interface and select the GUI DVD file.
Just for personal experience, please put it on the B drive, as it says, it's not going anywhere else.
Yep. Yeah, the script defaults to C. So if you want to use other folders, I know Scott did, it takes some manipulation. And I can definitely help with that, but you will probably have some headaches if you try to do it.
Not for the faint of heart.
Right.
Yeah, the easiest thing is changing the folder name. It's making the script allow you to change that. You can change the script, but you've got another place you showed me where you have to basically virtually erase a line, run it, and then you can unerase it if you like.
Right. Yeah.
That's the same part.
Yes, because the default scenario is set to it being under the C drive, and the scenario manager builds upon that default scenario.
I checked the assignment, and it did work in Transcad.
Fantastic.
Now, what I have discovered, and maybe, I don't know, again, if I'm too much into it, I'll talk to you after the break.
No, I'm
one of
welcome.
the things that we sometimes after a model run, you add a new road. Like in Louisville Bridges projects, we've got a whole new interstate link that's been created. But when I ran the assignment, I have two centroid connectors that are an origin of trips, and instead of them all going to the interstate and around the loop, they're taking this minor collector as a route. And I can't change the speed. Because I don't believe that's one of the options that we have in the scenario manager as an option.
Right.
So there's a deeper, this is the dark web of the model, I guess, of working with the speed cap bin file.
Mm-hmm.
That's only if you use a bin file for your speed at the lookup table. If you enter your speed specifically each link,
it overwrites them.
Oh, it does a bin file?
Yep.
Does that work? Because we've got ours where we can actually go in and modify the speed, but that's also a dark place to go. That's you don't want to get in the habit of doing that.
Well,
that's
modifying the speed cap.
a bad thing to do.
Yes, when you start modifying the speed cap bin file, you are doing global changes.
Right.
You can, though, and I'm just about to test this, is that you can go to it's undescribed, the FCLN attribute of the link.
Yeah, the functional classifier of the link. You can change the functional classifier.
You can change its value, because that's the value that's looked up.
And that's the lookup table, yeah. So.
And from there, it assigns the number of lanes, it assigns the speed. The RU code also has an effect to it, but with the speed cap bin file, there really isn't a whole lot of difference between the three RUC codes. It's great for visualization, though, because when you colorize, you can see the urban areas and the non-urban areas.
Mm-hmm.
Am I teaching bad habits to say if you want to change the speed on a segment so that you get slower or longer travel times to get better assignments on the link by changing the FCLN code?
So that FCL in code is this lookup corresponding to the speed capacity table. That is populated by the model script based on the functional class and the number of lanes. So you definitely have to be careful if you manually change it in the network and then rerun some of the create network scripts, then it will overwrite that to whatever the functional class and the number of lanes.
I guess the question here is the value of F class, a functional class, is that value and lanes from the lookup table, or are they an attribute in the network itself?
These are attributes in the network itself. The F class and lanes are in the network.
Okay. They're not specified by the lookup value?
They are not specified by the lookup value. What's specified by the lookup value is the level of service D. These are not used. But the level of service D for rural and urban also includes suburban here. And then the speed for urban, suburban, and rural. And alpha beta, which is the volume delay function.
So is the script creating the lookup value as a concatenation of the functional class plus lane?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes. So like 101 is functional class 1 with 1 lane. 115 is functional class 1 and 15 lanes.
Question. How many people know what concatenation is? Okay, that's it. Concatenate is basically what it does is if you look at the functional class value of the number of the link, multiply it by 100, you get a functional class that's 100 number. And then if you add to that number the number of lanes, you get the lookup value. And that's where it goes in to pick this stuff up in the script. So if you manually change your functional class, you change its lookup value. Mm-hmm. And with that, you can get a different speed, which will affect assignment.
Correct.
Because I was about to change that lookup value in the network, and then it wasn't going to work, was it?
No.
Okay.
No.
So if you did, you're going to get no difference because it's going to override that value.
It'll override it.
So what is a workaround for this?
A workaround, as you will see, for these scenarios, we've had 3 additional, lookups added. You can add your own, have it be a unique number in this lookup table, and then you specify what you want. You would have to specify every row in this field. Again, I caution you to be careful when updating any parameter files because it does change. These are global settings. So anywhere that, this lookup will exist or could exist, it will change it globally. So just be careful of that, if you're just trying to edit a particular route versus a global setting, because these are global settings.
Is it still time for you to maybe add that additional note to the document?
Yeah, I think we can add that to the documentation.
Really helpful for consultants who pick this up too, for level learning.
Yes.
Just to let you know what's going on,